What's going on, everybody? Aiden from Birds vs. Boys here, coming to you to react to the Eagles' win over the Browns to improve to 3-2 on the season, 20-16 win at home here in the second week of October. Coming off the bye week, we are live on YouTube this way. We are live on TikTok this way. So we're reacting on both. Feel free to comment as we go. All of our subscribers and all of our followers here. We'll get to all of your comments about this game as we progress. We got a lot of thoughts for a game that was 20-16. That game had the feel of an old school Big Ten West game that starts noon Eastern time on ESPN2 and 11 Central time for those Big Ten teams. It was some of the most anemic offense I've ever seen. It dragged so much at points. I told my friends, I think it was so boring that game will actually stick out and be memorable for how boring it was. Like that game occurred, right? It happened, and I'm glad that they won. I learned nothing about the Eagles from that game that would impact me in a negative or a positive way. I think the Browns are so bad and their offense is so bad that it's really hard to garner anything from what you're doing against a type of team like that to say, yes, good, or no, bad. Like it's just so hard to watch the Browns play football, especially on all the defensively. I think they are still a very solid unit, but offensively, it's just some of the most undisciplined, uh, inefficient offense that you'll ever see. Unfortunately, at points in the game, you also saw that from the Eagles as well. And we keep seeing this. Like, why do you think that they never win games by big amounts, or there's usually no swing? If you go back to week 6, I believe, of last year, so around this time last year, they beat the Dolphins by double digits. They don't have a win by double digits since that time, which is pretty remarkable to think about, because even at that stretch, they were only like 6-0, so they really hadn't collapsed. It's not like they were losing games, and now they're 3-2 this season, so they've even won games this year. That was the last time they won by more than one possession. You want to know why? Because this team is insanely talented, but they're also insanely undisciplined and insanely inefficient, which, when balances out, meets you in the middle. And that's where you create these averages where sometimes they look good, sometimes they look bad, and it meets in the middle, and they never can pull away from teams. They can never get out of their own way enough to pull away, put up a few touchdowns in a row, keep the chains moving. And then you look up and you're like, oh, if you're a non-Eagles fan watching, if you are an AFC North fan tuning in to see how the Browns did today, and you never turn on Red Zone and you say, "Oh, well, 1-4 Browns, the Eagles are up 24-0," right? Like you just never see that from this team. It's just incredibly. I don't know. I learned nothing from this game. I learned nothing from them. Again, a lot of it had to do with the Browns, but my thought on the Eagles is the exact same thought at 12:59 before kickoff as it was at 4:09 when we're recording this today. It's the same. It's just like I haven't learned anything from this team. I don't think they look any different from the bye week. The one thing, and we'll get into the positives, but like AJ Brown is just such a difference maker out there that I think he eliminates so many of the mental mistakes and the lack of crispness that their offense has, because he's the break glass in case of emergency. And you even saw it at the end of the game there. They're trying to run clock, get out of the game. One more first down ends it, and they just throw a home run ball and a contested throw, but AJ Brown catches it. He nullifies all of the dumb stuff that they do. So he was awesome. It's great to see him back out there. Devontae Smith went quiet, which kind of bothers me because we should be getting him the ball more. And you didn't see him for about 3 or so quarters. And then he had that underneath mesh route again, takes it 45 yards for what ended up being the game-winning touchdown. They had a lot of success on those underneath routes with him, on those mesh like crossers. They did it with Grant Calcaterra before, who was playing for Dallas Goedert. We'll have to get into the injuries. And they did it with Devontae Smith a few times today, and it really worked. And then just AJ Brown is just better than everyone who covers him. Like, this is not a bad Browns defense. He's just better than everybody. I don't think he's the best receiver in the league, but you can make you can make the argument that he has the best hands of any receiver in the league. I think he's really strong. He's really tough. Yeah, so we'll get into it for all the Eagles. Let's just start with the positives. Again, I've learned nothing. Like, watching a Deshaun Watson Browns offense in 2024 is just so hard to figure out, is your team good or bad when you play against them? So here's the biggest thing to me is the young guys shine. So Cooper DeJean got his first start. We knew he was going to get his first start today playing for Avonte Maddox, and it's not an injury thing. They mentioned that on the broadcast. This has nothing to do with injuries. He's just playing now, which is great to see. Quinyon Mitchell has been really solid as a rookie. It's been 6 weeks. It feels Quinyon's in my number one trusted guy on the defense. It feels like I've been watching him for 5 years. It's been 5 games. That's how sure he's been. Would have had that interception there, but him and CJ Gardner-Johnson ran into each other. Another classic, like, Eagles can't get out of their own way situation there. But he is he is just so solid. And then DeJean comes in and he's also solid as well. He had 6 tackles. He seemed to be flying all over the field. They're bringing him on blitzes from the nickel too, which I thought was cool. I haven't seen that from the Eagles a ton. They used to do it with Avonte Maddox a little bit, but that his athleticism, DeJean's, is probably why they're able to do that. It led to a sack. He had half a sack when the Browns were backed up against their own goal line. So seeing that from the young guys, Moro Jomo, those back-to-back plays, and I want to get into Jomo and Nolan Smith because I think it's a key thing here. But he had those back-to-back plays. He had the sack, and then he should have really had like another sack there with the pressure, and he got Deshaun Watson to throw it away and get the Eagles defense off the field early in the game when the offense was sputtering. And he was good. And Nolan Smith, I thought, flashed sometimes as well. But you're seeing those guys on the field more. You're seeing a lot of young guys who have potential, and we don't know if they're good yet, and we're just throwing them out there anyways. And it's getting to be that point of the season where it's like, we can't trust these veteran guys. Like, I think they've had enough of the Bryce Huff experiment already. So you're seeing Nolan Smith out there. Like, Josh Sweat is still good, but he had a sack today. But is not always like 3 down reliable. So you're seeing guys like Nolan Smith out there. They're cycling in Ojomo at defensive tackle. Like, they're trying to figure out a lot of these young guys and just seeing like, hey, hopefully these guys work. We already invested in them, which I am all on board with. Quinyon is good. Start him week 1. I was okay with DeJean having that month there where they kind of led him into that. That was awesome. I'm so glad that he's in now and looks good. I think next week they might even play Jalix Hunt, which is great too. But to see flashes from Nolan Smith too, there were just a lot of really good things that I liked from the young guys today. And I think that's the biggest thing. Even Kelee Ringo. So Darius Slay gets hurt. Isaiah Rodgers gets hurt. They have to bring in Kelee Ringo. He plays great defense on Amari Cooper, and he gets the flag drawn on Cooper. He was in such good coverage that Cooper is pulling his face mask and grabs a 15-yard penalty from it in the crux of the game. So everybody that they brought in, young guys, flash at some point today, which is really, really good to see. Jalen Carter, who is a young guy, but has been good enough that sometimes I consider him a veteran, even though he's a year and a half into his professional career. But he also had a sack today. He flashes all the time. I just saw it we'll get to the TikTok comments in a second, but I just saw that comment that Kelee had a crazy hit. He did. That was a first play. So his first 2 plays, he rocked the running back and then had great defense in one-on-one coverage against Amari Cooper. So to be seeing these things from these young guys give you a lot of hope in a team that I'll get into it, but I just don't feel a ton of joy. And maybe I just have a Phillies hangover or an actual life hangover, but I just don't get a ton of joy out of watching the Eagles in a game like this where it just drags for a while and the teams just don't flash a lot of home run capability in terms of offensive firepower. You're searching for something. Well, that's something for me is these young guys being able to ball out, especially on defense where you need it the most. What more? 5 sacks as well for the defense. So we'll wrap up on the defense there. Part of that is, listen, again, with the Browns, this is not just me turning the Browns into a shit show. Their offensive line has been banged up. You saw the center go out on what I thought was like the second play of the game. But I thought it was really good that we still had 5 sacks. Like, they had Deshaun Watson running for his life. They had 5 sacks. I think they could have had a few more where they had to pressure him and he had to get rid of the ball. I thought they did a really good job in pressure. Again, it's an asterisk because you're playing the Browns, but I still think like you take something from that because you're seeing those guys. It's the way that they created pressure for me. It was the blitzes off the side. It was, at the end, this doesn't count as a sack. It didn't even count as a play, but I don't know if they were teasing it or they were going to do it, but they bring 2 guys up the middle and they were teasing blitz on that 4th and goal from the 9. It caused a false start. And those are the kind of things I like. Like, there were different looks, right? Like, I think there were different looks on that defensive front that worked, and that caused some of the pressure. So 1, yes, it is because the Browns are just a shit show. But 2, I thought that the Eagles actually did a really, really good job disguising blitzes, winning one-on-ones, and just, again, young guys balling out, which was great to see. Let's go through. We're going to switch the offense, but I'll go through the TikTok comments quick. Sirianni needs to go, bro. Let's be real. Things are good now, but it's ridiculous. Yeah, like the thing at the end that's going to go viral is the clip of him. I don't know if he was taunting Browns fans, Eagles fans. It doesn't really matter. The optics of it with him continue to be very poor. And I think that does play a factor. Like we talk about this on the actual podcast all the time. I'm a big optics person, and the optics with him right now bother me a ton because that's the type of stuff. You won 20-16 over a lifeless 1-4 team that on the road after your bye week. And the rhetoric after your bye week was, oh, well, it was him and Hurts. Hurts literally had this quote. He said, we had great moments during the bye week. It was the best bye week he's had in his NFL career. And they come out on offense, and it looks like they haven't played football in 4 years, let alone 2 weeks. They weren't crisp. They didn't have great moments on offense. Again, they continue. They haven't scored in the first quarter. So to be taunting your fans, Browns fans, at the end of the game, it just bothers me. Like, it's just like, shake the player's hand. Like, he congratulated AJ Brown. Yeah, do that. Like hype your guys up. But there's just no need for that at this point. And just read the room. Like, this isn't an impressive win. You didn't blow the doors off the 1-4 Browns. And at points, it looked like you had potential to lose this game if you weren't playing the most anemic offense in the league. So it's just like bothersome. Let's see what else here. They stink, bro. Diehard Birds fan, but that was a terrible game today. It was boring. I just thought it was a very boring. This game should have been a blowout. That's kind of the point that I brought up at the beginning. They are clearly more talented than that Browns team, and let them stick around because of the inefficiency in which they run their offense. And that's why you always see that they're unable to blow teams out, including the Browns today. It's very frustrating to watch sometimes, but they do some dumb stuff to get in their own way. I thought the offense was pretty slow. Again, the Browns defense is still really solid. And you saw today, the Browns did the best job we've seen this year of kind of crowding the line for Saquon Barkley. And I thought they did a really good job of putting multiple helmets on him when he hit the gap so that he couldn't break one for 20, 30 yards like we've seen this entire season. So they did the best job this year of containing Saquon Barkley. And I think that had a lot to do with the kind of like slow play of the offense. Like, everything just kind of felt slow. It felt like we were in molasses. We just weren't moving, right? And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they couldn't get Saquon going. And that was because of the fronts that the Browns were showing and their ability to get multiple guys on him. So they did a phenomenal job there. But they didn't waver from the run game, the Eagles, which I think is the most important thing. Don't waver. Don't waver. Stick with the run. That's the kind of thing with Saquon Barkley. It might go -3. It might go -1, but then he's going to break one off for 25. And that's the one that you need. So I didn't think, again, remember College Game Day when they would give helmet, not College Game Day before the games, College Game Day after. It was College Football Final on ESPN. And every host would give like a helmet sticker to somebody for like somebody who shined that day. Who could we say about the Eagles? Like, I'm trying to think on offense. I was going to say it wasn't Hurts' best day, but whose best day was it? I mean, maybe AJ Brown, and I'm glad that he's back. But it's just feels like that kind of day. Like, it's like, yeah, they played and they won and it existed. Like, and we will go about our days tomorrow, and we have used 3 hours of our life on that game, and that's about it. We need more explosive plays on the passing game is another TikTok comment. I totally agree. It's there with AJ Brown back. It looks like they were trying early in the game to get him the ball. But I think what you do in your offense sets that up, right? Like, it's kind of similar in baseball. Like, the best power hitters also draw the most walks because you're trying to pitch around them and you're trying to not pitch them in a zone. If you're a good power hitter, you're not swinging and chasing things that are high or outside of the strike zone. It's similar in football in the sense that if you are crisp and efficient in everything else you do, like your run game, it's much harder to stop those home run deep threats if you're constantly in 2nd and 4 because you're able to run the ball efficiently. Everything's clean. You don't have penalties, so you're not behind the sticks in a 2nd and 15 situation, and the defense knows that you have to throw it deep. Like, all of these things factor in, and it's all the things that the Eagles don't do well. They have the talent to do it. They do not have the brain capacity, which is absolutely frustrating me. Calcaterra stepping in for Dallas Goedert I thought was just great today. I really, really thought he did a great job. He's faster than Dallas Goedert for sure. I don't know if he's a better tight end, but he's absolutely better than Goedert is in terms of speed. The running game has been abandoned way too early the past 2 weeks. I thought they abandoned it early and then got back to it, which I liked. The game before against the Bucks, I mean, it was just so bad that I think that's why they abandoned the run. But today they did get back to it. They had a few interesting run styles. The one that stuck out to me was actually Kenny Gainwell run, and I'd love to go back and watch this on film, but it looked like they had Calcaterra in the backfield or another running back. Saquon was out for this play, but it kind of shifted where everybody kind of went to the right-hand side, and then Kenny Gainwell had it open with like one lead blocker who I believe it was Milana before he got injured, like just running ahead of him. And I thought that was a really interesting concept. The option play with Saquon and Hurts, I thought was cool. I don't know if that was an intentional fake pitch to Saquon. Regardless, it was executed really well. They tried to run the option earlier in the season, and it kind of looked a little rough. This time, it was very, very well executed late in the game. Another game late where you're able to rely on Jalen Hurts' legs, which is good. That reminded me of the Packers game. When in doubt, they took it and they used Hurts' legs to kind of make through the game. Browns have a good defense too. They really do. And it made things kind of crawl. Like it felt like the Eagles were in a traffic jam. But again, like they also just do it to themselves. Like they miss things. They get hit with penalties. Like Hurts misses a guy. It's every week they do the same thing, which kind of leads me to my main point. And we'll talk about these TikTok comments, and then I'm going to get to the main point here. Even with the win, Nick's seat is on fire at this point. He was carried by two great coordinators. That was one of the worst wins ever, if that makes sense. All of that makes sense. So thank you to both of you. It was one of the most boring wins. Like I am a diehard fan. I live on the edge of my seat when I don't even like you can see me, like I'm in the prime of my life. I'm in my 20s and I don't even like to go to bars for the game because I want to sit in a hole and just watch 6 inches from the television and capture every single play. Like that diehard. I watched this team and I was like, yeah, I could probably sneak in a nap at halftime. Like I'm a little tired. I'm literally like, I watched the game outside. I'm like watching a squirrel in the tree next to me. I'm not joking. There's a squirrel behind the TV, and I'm watching that instead of the goddamn game because they're just like one of the worst wins ever. It was just boring. I thought it was a really boring game. And with Sirianni, like again, we talked about it earlier, but the optics are just crazy to me. Like I don't know. He doesn't run the offense, so you can't really blame him for that. But everything else in terms of execution with this offense bothers me because it doesn't look like they practice very well. Wouldn't be surprised if Sirianni is let go this week. I genuinely believe if they lost this game, they might let him go. Jeffrey Lurie just isn't the type of owner to fire the coach mid-season, and it took a lot for Chip Kelly to get fired at the end of that year. Hilariously, like the final straw was him not going to a Christmas party, like of all reasons, but it took so many reasons to get to that reason for Chip Kelly to get fired. And that was like Christmas. So it was literally like week 14, week 15. So I don't know if Sirianni would get fired, but he had to be on the hot seat. He says he doesn't run the offense, but it feels like this is like it feels too much like his hands are on it directly. I agree. It feels like it, but I can't really tell. And I thought we would have a better indicator today. I wasn't really trying to blame Kellen Moore or Sirianni the past few weeks because I think in situations like when they were in New Orleans, when they lost Lane Johnson, they lost Devontae Smith, and AJ Brown wasn't playing, and then they lost Mekhi Becton. So you're down your best two wide receivers, you're down your best offensive lineman and another offensive lineman. It's kind of hard to be running the schemes you want to run. Like you lose those guys mid games, your strategy goes out the window. And it was similar in Tampa. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt there. But I didn't see a lot today that I was like, well, this looks different. But if you go back to that Packers game when there was one time that offense was at full strength, I liked what they did. They scored 30 plus points and they sputtered that whole first quarter. And then they still put up 350 yards of offense and 30 points. So I was like, all right, well, this is the Kellen Moore offense. They look efficient and everything looks good again. And then they immediately got hit with a rash of injuries at key positions and it went right back to it. And then today I'm like, all right, they're fully healthy. They'll look like the Packers game again. And they just kind of weren't. So we need a bigger sample size on both of those guys. But at this point, again, I learned nothing today. I learned not a single thing aside from the fact that you confirmed that I think Cooper DeJean is awesome. That's the one thing that I've learned. Got to Nick and McDaniel's head. Yeah, I think so. Give Jalen credit for taking care of the ball. Good comment. This is a great comment. We have lost the turnover battle every single week. And it's infuriating. It's one of those things that I keep talking about. Like, our talent is always surpassing the other team. And what's balancing it out is those mental mistakes, including turnovers. Today, took care of the ball. That was huge. No interceptions, no fumbles. We talked about it last week against Tampa, but it felt Wentzian the way he was holding on to the ball for strip sacks in the pockets or forcing the ball to his receivers in that New Orleans game. So that is a great comment. Multiple people have brought it up here, or I'm sorry, same person, but great comment. I think that no turnovers was a huge thing. And again, if they would just get out of their own way, it feels like they could be a good football team, but they just don't. But that is a key part of it. And Jalen did not do that today. And I thought he made some good throws and then relied on his legs at the end. Again, I'm not writing home and saying he's the best quarterback in the league and should shoot to the top of the FanDuel odds chart for MVP after that one. He wasn't fantastic, but it did what he needed to do in terms of not turning the ball over, which is so key. They made a million other mental mistakes, but at least they didn't turn the ball over. And that was good because, again, with a team like the Browns, and we're going to talk similar conversations, similar rhetoric for the next month. They're playing a string of teams with losing records. They're playing 1:00 games at home against these 1-4 teams. And I think what has to happen in these games is we're talking about the same points of taking care of the ball and not turning it over, because these anemic offenses that you're playing in bad teams, the only way you're going to be able to allow them to keep up with you is if you're turning it over, giving them short fields or giving them touchdowns on turnovers and kind of bailing out their offense. So it's very key against bad teams to take care of the ball so you don't even the playing field. And Jalen did that today, which was really good. Saints down bad. Baker threw 3 picks and Bucks still hung a half 100 on him. Yeah, that game was crazy. If the rookie had that pick, the game would have been over earlier. Yeah, the Quinyon CJ Gardner-Johnson play, that sucked because I thought it was Quinyon's interception. He's had a few close ones this year. Still waiting on that first one. And it's just like classic. Sometimes you watch this team and they look like the Three Stooges, and those two running into each other where they both could have had the pick. And they both. What's hilarious is even when they do everything right, sometimes they still screw up. They both played that ball perfectly, and then they just ran into each other. So that sucks. I laughed my ass off of the Jets traded Reddick back to Philly. I would laugh and I'd be really happy. Apparently, there's something in the rules that they can't trade him back. That was a brutal drop pick. Hard to communicate that, though. That is a thing. Like, I wanted to blame CJ Gardner-Johnson really bad because all the veterans on this team, I am the meme of the chef who, when it's a little kid, he's like, oh, they're there. Take care. Like, it's okay to make a mistake. And then he's like, you donkey ass. When the other like adult cook makes a mistake, that's me. And he's like, you're an idiot sandwich. Every time a veteran screws up on this team, I'm livid. And every time like Quinyon or Cooper DeJean do something, I'm like, it's okay. Jalen Carter, I'm like, oh, it's okay. So I was really wanting to be mad at CJ Gardner-Johnson, even though they were both 50-50, ran into each other, but they played it awesome. And you're right, that game would have been over a lot sooner if they just picked that ball off, because I think they would have just avalanched on the Browns at that point. I'll look into that rule for the Hassan Reddick trade, but I was under the impression that they couldn't trade him back. The thing about the Reddick and Jets thing is, at what point do they just release him? And if they release him, could we just sign him off of waivers? Because he's fired his agent. There's stories in the New York Post that he's hiring goons to intimidate his agent. He's not playing, obviously. At what point do the Jets just say, all right, we'll just take the loss? Like, this is becoming an even bigger headache than we thought. And then we just swoop in and put in a waiver claim because I don't even know how many other teams at this point would. He's insanely talented, but this situation has gotten insane. It's gone from a training camp holdout to regular season holdout to him not even having an agent to negotiate with because they fired him and he intimidated them with goons. What kind of story is happening there? I didn't even know that was a thing. This is not the Sopranos. This is the NFL. So yeah, we might be able to get him back just off waivers at this point. I wouldn't even trade anything of it. So back to the Eagles, though. Again, we're looking at it. They win 20-16. We didn't learn much, and a lot of that's because of the Browns. But what's wrong? Why wasn't it 30-16? Why wasn't it 40-16? The short answer is the Browns defense is pretty good. The long answer and the more frustrating one and the one that constantly plagues this team is the mental mistakes and the little details that pile up on them. At the end of the half, that was a microcosm of every bonehead, dumb thing this team has done over the course of a year and a half. They had a situation where Saquon Barkley catches the ball. He's trying to get out of bounds late in the half. That part, understandable, trying to get out of bounds. But if you go out before the sticks, guess what? That doesn't actually save you any time because if it's 3rd and 1, then you have to run another play. And then you'd have to call the timeout anyways. So he gets out of bounds and it's 3rd and 1. So they still have to pick up the first down. On that, they call a timeout anyways. In that timeout, they come out of it. Don't block Owusu-Koramoah. He sacks Jalen Hurts. Now it's 4th and forever, and you have to kick a 57-yard field goal. You had a 2nd and 1 at the 20-yard line and are now kicking a 57-yard field goal that you get blocked in return for a touchdown. So all of the work that you put in progress in the half, it's now 10-10 going into the half against an anemic, awful Browns team that's 1-4 and lifeless. And all the momentum that you had in that half of doing things well on offense, you completely steamroll that momentum because you do so many dumb things. Blitz pickup, timeout management, game management. Why would you go out of bounds before the sticks? Every dumb thing that they have ever done can be in a summation right there in that sequence. They are dumb. They do dumb shit every week like that. And you might say to yourself, Saquon Barkley is obviously awesome. I am at the top of his fans. But at the same time, that's a little mental mistake where it's like, all right, well, he got out of bounds before the 6. I guess you can kind of forgive it. But then it piles up on them so fast. It piles up on them so fast because then it immediately leads to a sack. So instead of picking up that yard on 2nd and 1 and having a new set of downs at the 20 with 2 timeouts late in the half to put up another score and go up double digits at halftime, because you do that, okay, that's a mini mental mistake. Going out of bounds before the 6. The bigger mental mistake is not having the linebacker on the blitz. Okay, now your quarterback sack on 3rd down, and now you have to kick a 57-yard field goal instead of either kicking a 37-yard field goal with no time left in the half and the Browns not seeing the ball or scoring a goddamn touchdown. It is exactly the type of stuff where you look at the score and you're like, oh, 2016, they should have won by double digits. That's a flip of at least 10 points right there. They were at the worst case scenario in that situation for smart football teams is they go into the half up 13-3. The worst case scenario, the worst, is 13-3. They went in the half 10-10. It is insane, some of the stuff that they do. But that was an all-time one of just absolutely I cannot believe the type of stuff that they do with the mental mistakes. It seems like every week you see them pile up one by one by one. So that stuck out to me and it frustrated me so much because I sat there and I was so dejected because I was thinking to myself, hey, they could really go up 17-3. That's exactly how we thought it was going to go on the podcast this week. It means you saw some signs of life from your offense. A.J. Brown's back. He was awesome. And you're moving the ball. And how about this 2-minute drill? You're doing a really good job moving it down. It's like every time you seem to have a positive thought, they can sense you having a positive thought and strike with the dumbest thing possible to do on a football field. They are like sharks smelling blood in the water. But if that blood was just positivity that oozes from me when I want to like them and root for them. And instead, when they smell that positivity, that's when they attack and do the dumbest shit possible. It drives me up a wall. in that situation. You executed a 2-minute drill to perfection down the field until that 3rd and 1 play. It's so dumb. Even at the end, the last play to Brown, I was like, okay, now they want to play. I'm done. That play is also dumb. It just so happens that AJ Brown is just better than everyone who covers him. Like, the risk to reward situation of throwing a deep ball up 4 at the 2-minute warning. It's just like, we never learn our lesson. It's so high risk to high reward. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not going to get mad that AJ Brown's awesome. It's just, it's just type of stuff. They're lucky that they're talented, because if they weren't, they'd be a lot like the Browns. They'd be like 1-4 because they don't do a lot of the little things well in this game. Love this podcast. I watch every day. Thank you so much. Thank you. Big week for us. Lions and Cowboys coming up. So we'll have another big show this week. And hey, how about the NFC East and whole? Like, the Cowboys are 3-2. Now we're 3-2. I know the Commanders lost today, but they're 4-2, and Jaden Daniels has been balling out. So it's been a great ride so far for the NFC East, where it feels competitive. I got the shirt from Abercrombie, so they have a huge Eagles like vintage connection. And Ravens got the W. Big time for the Ravens, because I was listening to some podcasts. Like, that was a huge game there in the DMV, where people were saying, listen, this might be the time. Like, the Ravens have been good for sustained success for 2 decades. And some people were saying, like, this could be the time that the energy in that area shifts from Ravens to Commanders. And they went out and took care of business, and Lamar's rolling. He might win another MVP. And as good as Jaden Daniels was, the Ravens win today. And yeah, it's a huge, huge win for them. If you told me that the Commies would be 4-2, I'd say that the Eagles and boys would be dead from injury. Well, I guess I should touch on that, because we almost did die from injury. So Dallas Goedert, I think, got hurt on the first play of the game. So he hurt his hamstring. That one sucks, but I think you saw a lot of good stuff from Grant Calcaterra, and I liked his speed from the tight end position. 2, Darius Slay went out with a knee. I can't do the Darius Slay rant today. People are probably tired of me doing the Darius Slay rant. But I obviously don't want him to have a knee injury. We'll see how intense that is. Usually he can get banged up and come back a few plays later, but he never returned to the game. And it looked like he was limping on the sideline there. So we'll see how long that is. And we see who they fill that spot with, whether it's Ringo or Isaiah Rodgers. The big one. And by the way, this game was brutal. How many injury timeouts do we have? We lost Goddard on the second play, and then to bring the card out for their center on their second play on offense. It was brutal. It was all day. Elijah Moore at the end, Slay. And then the big one for us, Jordan Mailata carted off the field. Fred Johnson replaced him. He replaced Lane Johnson earlier in the season. How intense is the Mailata injury? Is it a knee injury? He was hyping the crowd up as he went off. And was he carted in just because he's a big fella? Or it could be anything from a high ankle sprain to a knee. We just don't have a lot of information on that yet, but obviously that goes a long, long way for us. We need him for the long term. I thought the offensive line didn't struggle today, but they faced a really good front, and Myles Garrett is probably the best defensive end in the league. So, in those situations, you're thinking to yourself, I'm glad that we have a good offensive line, because you saw a bad offensive line play today from the Browns. Like, that is Watson is running for his life every other play. He holds on the ball for too long. They drop pass. They do everything wrong. Like, literally, like everything possible on a football field, they do wrong. But I do think you saw a bad play there, and you saw some pretty good play from the Eagles offensive line. So how hurt is Mailata? That is the huge, huge one going forward. So take a drink challenge, Slay edition. Oh, my God. I hope he's okay. I didn't want him to get hurt. I just didn't want him to be on the team next year. I'm fine. I would just don't want him to be hurt. I do appreciate the guy stepping up in his absence. So all in all, not the craziest game that you're ever going to see from the Eagles. Not the craziest game you're ever going to see on an NFL Sunday. If you're a red zone watcher and not an Eagles watcher, I'm sure we didn't pop up too much. It took quite literally 100 plays in our game to make it to the first play in which a team ran a play in the red zone. So you probably didn't see too much of us, and that's okay. Reporting from the Big Ten West, this has been Aiden, who is an Eagles fan who apparently likes the Iowa Hawkeyes offense that is now turned into the Eagles offense. But they did get a win. Um, we'll see. Again, this to me has always been the sample size that makes or breaks the season. 4 games in October. Every team has a losing record. They're 1-0 now, 3-2. Where are they after this month? It's going to dictate a lot about how we feel about this team. Honestly, probably not just this year, but probably for the next 3 years. And it all comes down to this month. So win today, 1-0. I'll answer this one question before we get out of here. What do you think about that last play to Brown? Bad play call, or good, I assume. So to me, I think it's dumb, but it worked. And if you're trying it with anybody else aside from AJ Brown, to be dumb, but they are clearly aggressive late in game situations and don't want to rely on just trying to drain clock running the ball. And I totally get that. And I understand that concept even on the Saquon drop against the Falcons on the Monday Night Football game. It's just some of the play style. That one was crazy, but hey, it worked. So guess what? That's kind of how it goes. Saquon drops it when he's wide open. Oh, bad play call. Jalen throws it 30 yards downfield in a 2-minute situation when you're trying to drain clock to AJ Brown. Good play call because it worked. That's just kind of how it goes in the NFL. I didn't love it, but it worked, and it just makes me appreciate AJ Brown. I think is the biggest thing of that, because he had some really, really tough catches today, and I'm really glad he's back. And you see the difference in the offense as a dynamic playmaker when he's there and how he can stretch the field. So all in all, the Eagles are 3-2. That game happened. What a day, what a win. We'll be back this week with more episodes. Again, I'm recording right now as the Cowboys game is going on, so we'll be back to react a little bit more to these games, get an injury report, and get into it. Again, October is make or break for the Eagles, so it was a good win. Let's build on it. Let's stop doing dumb stuff, and let's build it. Let's get to 6-2. Let's get to 7-2 going into November. See how we feel about this team. But 3-2. Big win. And yeah, I think you kind of felt that way in the Lincoln Financial Field crowd as well. There was people who were like, I'm skeptical, but I'm here. So that's how we feel today. I'm skeptical, but I'm here, and we're signing off. I appreciate everybody who commented on TikTok. I appreciate everyone who followed along on YouTube. We'll be back on both platforms this week to talk a little bit more football with you.